It's been a really tough year for me for a few reasons. I was working for my dad, getting ready to take over our family construction business when he retired. But he never made it to retirement. He had a massive heart attack and passed away at the beginning of the year. Not long after that, I found out my wife of 6 years, Angela, was leaving me. I remember my mom calling to tell me about Dad's heart attack like it was yesterday. I rushed to the hospital, but I was too late. Dad was gone before I got there. After the funeral, I went from knowing only half of the business and letting Dad handle the big decisions to running the whole show and learning as I went. I had to spend so much time at work or traveling to see clients and suppliers that my home life suffered. Angela got lonely, and I understood, but I thought it would only be for a few more months. That wasn't enough for her. She found comfort with someone else, Stephen Collins. When she told me she was leaving, it hit me hard. I sat there in shock and asked her why. I know it's been tough, but why? You were never here. I bumped into Stephen, and we got talking. I'm sorry, Dave, but he was here and you weren't. I fell in love with him. I'm really sorry. Angela stood and walked towards the door. I'll come back when you have packed and left. I watched the woman I loved walk out of my life. Angela was good-looking, tall, slim, with long, shiny brown hair. I sat and thought about the bombshell Angela dropped on me. I noticed the divorce papers on the table. She wanted the house in custody of our daughter, Millie, 30% of our savings in child support. I packed my clothes and personal stuff and left. I spent the weekend in a hotel. The following week, I sorted out somewhere permanent to stay. I rented a small 3-bedroomed house in a quiet street. I didn't tell anyone at work what had happened. They would find out eventually. I wasn't in the mood to discuss it with anyone. Collins owned a chain of builders merchants and was our biggest supplier. I don't know who initiated the affair between them. To be honest, I didn't care. I had no worries about the company as we had cast iron prenup. My father insisted it was signed as he didn't want me to lose the business should Angela and I ever get divorced. At the time she signed, and we both thought we would be together until the day we died. My only concern was my daughter Millie. I didn't want to hurt her with the divorce. Angela had the house, and she got child support as well. There was spousal support, but that would stop if she ever married again. 1 year after the divorce, she married Stephen Collins. They moved in together in the house I let her have. Angela got custody of Millie, and initially, I used to see her for 2 weekends every month. Over time, those weekends became less frequent, and whenever it suited them rather than me. I tried calling, but there was always an excuse: she had activities, or they were going away. Eventually, I told them I'd take Millie whenever they allowed it, and I wouldn't bother them anymore. I didn't realize then that Angela had driven a wedge between me and my daughter. What really upset me was hearing how Collins boasted about his family and put me down at the same time. Angela's behavior and not being able to see my daughter weighed heavily on me. It was when I realized her husband was disrespecting me that I started to feel nothing but hatred towards them. That weekend I was due to have Millie, and I was looking forward to it. Sometime on Saturday morning, she asked me a question and referred to me as Uncle Dave. I explained that I wasn't her uncle but her daddy. But Stephen is my daddy. Mummy said you were my uncle. That really pissed me off. I didn't say anything to Angela when she collected Millie on Sunday. I felt like it was too much to get involved in a screaming match with her in front of Millie. The next time we were alone, I would mention it. It was after a bad day at the office I snapped and realized I had been too soft for too long. I formed a plan of revenge to be put into effect starting tomorrow. I spent a lot of time that week calling existing and new suppliers. I guaranteed them a lot more business if they, in return, would guarantee a favorable price. Most agreed as they wanted the increase in business. I called a meeting of the senior managers and the heads of purchasing and accounts departments. When I entered the room, I could see the worried looks on their faces. Gentlemen, first and foremost, the company is not in trouble. This is not a meeting to discuss laying people off. After that, they visibly relaxed. I know the company has a lot of projects ongoing at the moment. What I need to know is how many of them still require building materials. Don Foster, the head of purchasing, was the first to comment. I have requests from 2 site managers to place large orders this week. I slid a sheet of paper across to Don. This is a revised list of our suppliers. I want to make sure all business goes through them from now on. Don looked at the sheet. I don't see Collins Construction Supplies on here, Dave. No, you don't. And you never will. From this moment forward, Harrington Construction no longer does any business with CCS. I mean, they won't receive any orders from us. If anyone buys even a single nail or screw from them, they'll be fired immediately. Next to the company names on the list, you'll see what each one can offer us. We're free to use any of them for whatever we need. They've all guaranteed good prices and timely delivery for our projects. The rest of the meeting focused on general business topics. 2 weeks later, our company secured a contract to build numerous houses and retail spaces nearby. The project required a substantial amount of materials. CCS wouldn't be getting any orders from us for this. News quickly spread about our contract win. Within days, I had a visit from a salesman from CCS. He said they could offer us all the materials we needed at a very good price. I stopped in mid-pitch and said that we no longer dealt with CCS as a supplier. He looked visibly shocked as he left my office. I had a smile on my face which didn't go unnoticed by Sandra, my secretary. I can see you enjoyed that, she said, smiling. I knew why when you said the other day we were not dealing with CCS in future. Things were looking good as our new suppliers were keeping their promises. Smaller projects came our way throughout the year. I was asked to submit a bid to build a new company headquarters building for a growing tech company. Our bid was successful. The only low point of the year was when my mother passed away. Her health had been getting worse. The divorce and not seeing so much of Millie didn't help, and I know she really missed my father. Angela knew about Mom. She didn't even bother to ask if she could attend a funeral. She never showed up. Several of our competitors and smaller companies we used on a subcontract basis learned of my decision not to deal with CCS when asked why. I just gave an honest reply. The owner stole my family from me, so I took my business from him. I know it sounds petty, but it's the one way I can get back at him without going to prison. It wasn't long before one of my managers, Bill, asked to speak with me. What's on your mind, Bill? I asked. I thought you might like to know that several of our smaller competitors and subcontractors have stopped doing business with CCS, Bill replied. At our last Freemason Lodge meeting, I found out that both Baxter's and Charlesworth Construction are no longer sourcing materials from them. It seems the word has spread. You might not know this, Dave, but a lot of people have a great deal of respect for you, partly because of your personality and the honest way you do business, Bill continued. Thanks, Bill. It's good to hear that people think well of me, I responded. As for our business practices, that's the reputation my father worked hard to build, and I'm committed to upholding it. Business was going well, but I hadn't seen my daughter in a while. I decided to call Angela later from home and ask if I could have Millie for the weekend. Just as I settled in at home, the doorbell rang. It was Angela, storming into my house. Good evening, Angela. Please come in. Why don't you? I greeted her sarcastically. Don't you give me that fucking smug look, Dave. What the hell are you playing at? What the hell are you talking about, Angela? We haven't spoken in ages, and now you burst in here and start accusing me of God knows what. You know what I am talking about. She screamed. You are trying to ruin Stephen's business. It's bad enough that you won't deal with him anymore. But to badmouth him to all the other companies is downright fucking nasty. I knew Angela was seriously pissed off, as she had sworn at me twice in less than 2 minutes. I didn't tell anyone anything, Angela. Most people know what happened between you, me, and Stephen. If they have taken their business elsewhere, It has nothing to do with me. Now, if you have nothing else to say, please leave. I haven't eaten yet, and I'm hungry." I slammed the door behind her and smiled to myself. It was nice knowing Collins was feeling the pinch. I called Angela after I had eaten and asked if I could have Millie for the weekend. She was still angry and hesitated before finally agreeing to drop her off on Saturday morning. Millie and I spent the day at the zoo. We stopped for hamburgers on the way home. I asked her how she was doing at school. "It's good, Daddy. My teacher says I am doing really well. Mommy wanted me to go to another school, but I didn't go. I'm glad as all of my friends are at school with me." We watched a movie later at home, and Millie went off to bed just after 9 p.m. I thought about what she had said about going to a different school. When I brought Millie home on Sunday, Angela asked if she could talk to me privately. Stephen stayed back, and Millie went up to her room. "Dave, this isn't easy for me," Angela began. "Is there any way you could give Stephen some business? We were hoping to send Millie to a private girls' school, but with business slowing down, we can't afford the tuition." "I'm sorry, Angela, but we've already committed to suppliers for all our current projects," I replied, even though I knew it wasn't entirely true. "And Millie seems happy where she is, with all her friends. I think she prefers staying at her current school." My short drive home was a happy one. I knew CCS was struggling to stay afloat, and without an increase in business would go under very soon. Collins had already closed 2 depots. All he had left was his main yard with a head office building. When I told Angela we had no new business, I struggled to keep a straight face. We have more work than ever. I felt good knowing she and Steve were struggling. My only concern was Millie. She was the innocent one in the middle of this mess. It was a few months later when Don Foster informed me that CCS had ceased trading and filed for bankruptcy. With the school holidays coming up, I took the chance to spend time with Millie. Angela seemed relieved to have her off her hands for a few weeks. I took a holiday for the first time in years. Millie and I spent 2 weeks in Florida. We visited Disney World and loads of other attractions. I was exhausted but happy at the end of the fortnight. I had no idea what was going on at home. As I had no phone calls, things must have been going smoothly. It was late when we arrived home. Millie went straight to bed. I sorted some things from our cases and went to bed shortly afterwards. We ate breakfast before leaving to go to Angela's house. Angela wasn't in the best of moods, but she listened to Millie ramble on about her holiday and all the places we visited. I casually asked where Stephen was. "I have no idea, Dave. He asked me to remortgage the house to save his business. When I refused, he stormed out and hasn't been back. That was 2 days ago, and I haven't heard a thing from him." I offered an apology and then left to return home. I had things I needed to do before returning to the office on Monday. Angela called me on Monday morning asking for advice. She said Stephen had missed some important details needed for the business sale. I told her if she wasn't listed as a director and their house wasn't tied to the business, she should stay out of it. It was Stephen's problem, not hers. I did offer to let Millie stay with me if it would help, but Angela declined, though she thanked me. I must have looked happy about something because Sandra noticed and commented that I seemed to be enjoying CCS's downfall. I told her I don't care about what happens to him and Angela. My only concern is for Millie. Angela did accept my offer of help with Millie, and she spent a few weeks with me. I managed to get her to school on time and made sure I collected her as well, one of the advantages of being the boss. I also knew the managers in the office would be okay without me for a few hours each day. I was relishing spending time with my daughter. Angela was having a tough time with Stephen missing. She passed any mail for him to his solicitor, leaving him to deal with the problem. With no income from Stephen, Angela had to consider getting a job just to pay the bills. She didn't ask me for employment. I would have turned her down anyway. Stephen was never seen again, and his business dealings were dealt with by his lawyer. One of the smaller companies I dealt with was looking for somewhere to headquarter their business. They purchased the CCS yard at rock bottom price. Angela eventually divorced Stephen for abandonment. She ended up selling the house and moving into a smaller property. She gave all of Stephen's clothes to a homeless charity. Millie liked the new house as she managed to get a bigger bedroom out of the deal. Angela had found work as an admin assistant for a small law firm. My business grew, and I was financially secure for the rest of my life. Angela showed signs of stress and aged very quickly. Dealing with Stephen's business and his sudden absence definitely influenced that. Millie and I talk more now than we ever did before, and I get to spend a lot of time with her. There's no chance of Angela and me getting back together. I made it clear that our relationship was over for good. I wasn't seeing anyone new, although Sandra kept bringing up her niece to me. I accomplished what I set out to do. I brought down the man who tore my family apart. I can rest easy at night. I wonder if Stephen Collins can say the same, wherever he is. Second story. Cheating on his fiancée. I met a guy online who seemed normal at first. He texted a lot before we met in person, which I found a bit strange. Our first date was great, but on our second date, he told me he had ended his engagement and was living alone. We dated for a couple of months, but I noticed some major red flags. He was very protective of his phone, and when I visited his place once, he said his room was too messy for me to see, so I only saw the guest bedroom. He was always busy on weekends, but made time during the week. He only stayed over on weekdays. Eventually, I ended things because I felt he was hiding something, and I didn't trust him. Recently, I found out he's still engaged and living with his fiancée. Should I tell her? Or should I let her marry this cheater? I don't care about her, but I want him to realize what a terrible person he is. He doesn't know that I know yet. He tried to contact me 3 days ago, but I ignored him.